firstly, how are you finding being in lockdown and lockdown life in this current situation that we're all in?
It's a bit tricky, isn't it? I mean, the social distancing element is by far the worst part of it. Thankfully, I'm able to kind of maintain some sort of work, but yeah, your heart sort of goes out to the people who are sort of in slightly worse situations. My family are all well, and I'm well, so not too bad. I've moved to the countryside to my parents' house, so at least I've got a little bit more sort of outdoors going on, which is nice.
Good, good. Are you still managing, obviously, to train, and like you say, you still got a few clients?
Yeah. I've been working with clients and athletes online for a number of years now, so it was an easy transition to get my my one-to-ones moving online as well. So I've pretty much got a full diary. A couple of people were sort of struggling for space at home, so can't really do much. But yeah, on the whole, yeah, it's all good.
Good. What's your kind of go-to lockdown hobby? Are you a reader or a baker?
Absolutely not baking. Thankfully, my mum likes baking, so I do a lot of eating.
Right.
But my hobby would be just to read, watch movies, sit out in the garden. Been going on lots of bike rides at the moment. I got lost the other day, and that was pretty awful. Had to walk up this very muddy, slippery slope in the middle of the woods, and I thought I was going to die. But yeah, it's a great hobby.
Ideal. Brilliant. Okay, so I think obviously this is a women's rugby platform. So if we start there with your rugby journey. Now, I did hear that you started playing rugby from a young age, about 6, and you knew you wanted to play for England from a young age as well. So you did obviously get to do that, and I think I read it was 32 appearances in the Red Rose shirt.
Brilliant. Good research going on. Well done.
Love it. And you played for 10 years, which is a long career in terms of international standards. So yeah, firstly, what are your kind of overriding memories of playing in an England shirt, and what would you say are your best memories?
Well, it's been a long 10 years of a rugby career, but I played 32 times. And if you think about sort of how long I was in the squad, but sort of not appearing on the pitch, I think the overriding kind of experience has been my sort of battle with injuries, comebacks, and then injuries again. But most positive memory is probably going to be the 2010 World Cup, and then in more recent years, the Tyrrell's 15 Premiership, where we won in the first year of it running as Harlequins. So that was a massive one. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And as you mentioned there, you did have your setbacks with injuries, and you mentioned the 2010 World Cup. So should we talk about that one first? What was it like just playing in a home World Cup, having a home crowd, and all the attention kind of on England?
It was huge. Yeah, it felt like a real turning point for women's rugby, and to be a part of that pioneering phase of rugby was huge. Having a home support network was huge as well. We were lucky enough to sort of play at the Stoop, and that sort of embedded us as our home ground. Yeah. And I think it's only gone leaps and bounds since 2010, and it's great to have been a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've started reading Catherine Spencer's book about her rugby journey, and obviously the 2010 World Cup did end in heartbreak with the loss in the final. Obviously you played in the semi-final, and I know that you did get injured and you fractured your knee in that game. What are your memories of that game, and how did it feel to ultimately not be able to play in the final?
Very mixed feelings about that day. Obviously hugely gutted not to have been on the pitch. The injury was horrific, and I was in a wheelchair watching that game. But the main thing that I struggled with was not being able to contribute to the end result, and especially as we lost, it just felt like I could have done something. Leading up to that game, we were performing well. I was starting on the wing, so I felt like I probably would have been starting in that final, and to have missed out on that and not being able to kind of help dictate the result was heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I'm interested to ask a bit more about your journeys with injuries. Obviously, it's not what a player wants, but you did have that injury where you were sidelined for a long time after the semi-final, and then I read that you obviously came back and you got to your ACL. What are your learnings from being injured? What are your memories of being injured, and how did you deal with it mentally and physically? Because I do speak to a lot of players that say they kind of lose that sense of identity when they are injured, and it takes a lot of commitment and dedication to get back to that top level.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that sort of the sense of identity. I think I was lucky enough to still remain embedded in the squad throughout both my knee injuries. Excuse me, not corona cough. And so I still felt like I was part of the squad. I was still getting treatment through physio and psychology as well. The main struggle was the time in the gym versus the time out on the pitch, and it was just demoralizing. Just seeing the squad get their boots on, go out to the pitch, and you're putting your trainers on, going to the gym. And that on repeat is the toughest thing. And then there's the fighting for your place when you're fit. I was out for 2.5 years after that first injury, and the main battle I had was the fact that the game had simply moved on in that time. Right. So I felt like I was always sort of chasing everyone's ability. By that point, everyone was fitter, faster, stronger, and then suddenly the game was moving at sort of 5 miles per hour, like faster than I was used to. So I think that took me a long time to get used to that again.
Okay, and then what was it like? Again, you just mentioned there, having to watch people playing, you having to go to the gym, but what was it like to watch the 2014 World Cup and obviously see England win it?
Yeah, I have to admit, I was gutted. I was not involved in that. It was touch and go whether or not I was going to try and go for that World Cup. I was suffering with, coming back from an ACL injury, was also suffering with a bit of PTSD around that injury. And I took the decision not to try because I wasn't capable of putting the fight in. And then when the World Cup came around, I felt a little bit distant from it, which I think was just really helpful for me. And then once they won, I was like, well, I want a piece of that, so I'm going to try and get back in this, and I went for the 2017.
Wow, mental resilience that you showed is incredible, because you did come back in 2015 and appeared in the Six Nations, and you scored a try, which is always good. What was it like to finally pull on that Red Roses shirt? I mean, I know that you did have the initial comeback in 2013, and then you went back to being injured, unfortunately. But so what was it like to get through an entire game unscathed?
A miracle. I think I just felt a good, massive sense of just trying to find the right word. Just a massive. I can achieve. I can overcome things. I can put the work in and get the end result that I want. And that was a really, really big moment for me, that I could come back again, and the second time. The second time definitely felt like it was, okay, and now I'm here to stay. Came through a number of games unscathed, as you said, but
yeah,
I still had that same problem of just being slightly behind the speed of the game because I'd spent so long out.
Yeah. Okay, so you did come back for international at international level, and you also, like you mentioned, went on to play for Harlequins in that first Tyrrell's Premier 15s season, and I know you played previously for Richmond. So I guess my question now is, once you came back to the domestic level, when did you decide that actually either you or your body had just had enough and you wanted to stop playing at that top level?
I think the 2017 season for prep for the World Cup was really tough. I was full-time with the squad, and that was an incredible experience to be full-time, and everyone who's full-time from now on, just embrace it for as much as you can, because it's so amazing to be a full-time athlete. Yeah. And I again missed out on the World Cup experience. I tore my quad in like a couple of months before in the selection period. There was a New Zealand tour that I didn't get to go on because I had a torn quad. So again, there's a big sense of missing out through, because my body was just not doing what I wanted it to do. Yeah. And after missing out on that World Cup, I just thought I really need to just play for fun and not put too much pressure on myself. And that's when I had my last season for Harlequins in 2018.
Okay, right, I see. And so before we move on to, actually no, I'll save that question for at the end. So you obviously put that chapter of your life that was professional rugby, or sorry, not professional, rugby kind of over. Then what did you move on to, and what are you up to now?
Well, thankfully I'll start that again. So I've been developing myself as a personal trainer and strength and conditioning coach for a number of years. So although I would have liked to have been professional as a rugby player for my entire career, we were amateur for much of my time. But what that did allow me to do was develop my career in personal training. And I've been doing that since, really. I've been working on gaining more qualifications in strength and conditioning. Hopefully I'll move on to working in a team environment, because I'm really missing the team vibe at this point. So yeah. I might just try and get back into the team stuff, just in a different angle.
Okay, nice. And yeah, okay, that sounds great. Is there anything you wanted to pitch what you're doing, what you're up to? What's your website?
Well, my personal training website is fionapococktraining.com. Mm-hmm. But a really exciting thing that I'm doing at the moment, ready for the plug, is I'm running a weekly fundraising workout on Monday nights at 6. It's called FIPO's Fitness Survival Club, and we're just raising money for NHS Charities Together, which is a sort of an umbrella charity which kind of divvies out funds for NHS staff and volunteers around the country. So we've up to about £500 so far. Need more. We're only on our second week running, but it'd be great if we could get a little bit more, and more the merrier.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll definitely plug that on my own channels for you on your behalf as well. And that sounds like a really great cause. So well done with all of that.
Thanks. No, it's a lot of fun. It's just a way for people to come together and do something that's active and have a little bit of fun, sort of on the screens, and raising money for something that's really needed.
Okay, Bill. And do you play any other team sports? Are you, now that your rugby's done, are you more of a runner, or do you just stick to the more of the strength and conditioning side of it?
I had a little phase of being a runner, and it lasted just a couple of months before my body was saying, no, you really shouldn't be doing this. But cycling seems to be the way forward. Nice and linear, low impact. But it is lonely. I mean, I might sort of try and get involved in a team sport at some point, but we shall see.
Okay, and just lastly on this, on the kind of rugby side as well, with your injuries that you suffered, obviously with the ACL and the knee and the quad, do you feel the repercussions of having a 10-year-long international rugby career? Just your body, I mean, you're only 30, so do you feel that, your body, do you feel the repercussions of being a rugby player?
In short, yes. But the long answer is, most of the time I can kind of work around it with some knowledge of keeping my body healthy. I'm lucky that I get to spend the day in the gym, really, because any moment I get, I can sort of do some stretching, do some strength work, keep my body sort of ticking over. The worst thing is being sat down all day in this isolation. I'm used to sort of moving about in the gym, like on my feet all day, and now I'm sat down on the screen, and my back is is telling me it doesn't like it.
Yeah, I'm the same. My legs, my hips are just so much stiffer. I was talking about it earlier, and it's just maybe every 2 hours or so I might just go and do a little loop of the garden.
Yeah.
Make sure it's not great, is it? But anyway.
More often than that, I'd say.
Great. And just lastly, what would be your advice? You have suffered your fair share of setbacks throughout your career. And I just wanted to ask, what would be your advice for anyone who might be going through rehabilitation at the moment or recovering from injury, and just generally during this sort of unknown, anxious time that we're all going through at the moment? What would be your advice generally?
I think my advice would be to not set your targets too far ahead. Mm-hmm. It's good to be aware of your end goal. My end goal was get back onto the rugby pitch, preferably for England. But in order to get there, there's so many little things that you've got to do along the way. And if you keep focusing on the distant future, you're not going to focus and achieve everything you need to achieve in the short term. And it's knackering thinking ahead. When am I going to get back onto the pitch? You're better off just thinking, okay, what can I do this week? How can I be better next week? And then that over time, you'll get there.